Check this out. What you just saw was a single car garage door being unceremoniously hurled at the head of a firefighter. And thank God he was wearing his helmet, because the door left a dirty big gouge in that before coming to rest 30 feet from where it had previously been installed. This event happened in Arizona in April, and we really need to talk about what caused it. I'm John Cadogan from Expert.com.au, new cars cheap, Australia only, website, card. This story comes out of an organisation called EV Fire Safe. They have an awesome YouTube channel and a website, evfiresafe.com. I'll link to both of those and the full video on this one in the description so that you can check them out at your leisure. And I sincerely advise you to go to evfiresafe.com and have a look around if you're someone like me in particular who is not anti-EV but quite concerned about the way these vehicles and this technology is being deployed here in Australia and around the world without all due care and consideration for things such as fire safety and the safe disposal of batteries at the ends of their lives, and all that kind of structural change that needs to happen in the background if we are to safely and responsibly deploy EVs on the road to some kind of perceived electric utopia. So evfiresafe.com for more on this. What you just saw was the rapid departure of that garage door caused when a cloud of vapour that was off-gassing from a Wrangler plug-in hybrid, like a Jeep Wrangler 4xe, which has like a 17 kilowatt hour battery. It was in thermal runaway, so it was off-gassing this explosive vapour in an enclosed space. The vapour goes bang, it deflagrates, so that's the gentle kind of explosion. If you can call the departure of a garage door like that towards a human being in any way gentle, at least I guess it wasn't a supersonic shockwave, so there's that to be thankful for. If you want to drill down into all of that, we'll get into that in just a sec. This video is sponsored by Oite Sale, 8 p.m, Tuesday, September the 19th until midnight, Saturday the 23rd. Links in the description. I use an Oite every day. It's this Warrior Mini 2. This has been superseded by the Mini 3 now, but mine just refuses to die despite my numerous attempts, and now we're emotionally attached. So my top recommendations on Oite for you are the Warrior Mini 3 for the ultimate in-pocket EDC experience and also its general cockroach-like ability to survive. The Warrior 3S if you want the same kind of torch, only bigger and brighter. With a swivel, it's a torch and a work light, and dude, it's less than $40 during the sale, so that's a no-brainer. Alternatively, if you need a power bank for your phone, grab a Swivel Pro Max. It's a power bank plus a work light and an emergency red strobe. New this month, the Seeker 4 Pro, optimised for outdoor use, brighter than ever at 4,600 lumens and with 2 charging options, a magnetic base or USB-C via the included holster. O-Lantern Music is a retro-styled lantern with stepless dimming and built-in Bluetooth speakers that mean Celine Dion can accompany you everywhere. Now, who doesn't want that? Plus, it is also a backup power bank. The Opry 2 EDC titanium multi-tool. This is great to screw tripod plates onto cameras. Plus, it's a mini pry bar and it's got 3 bit drivers in a concealed compartment. It weighs essentially nothing. Now, if you need to get approval for purchases such as these from your other half, your planned transactions might be lubricated with this gorgeous pink O-Pen glow. It's actually a really good pen and a great handbag torch. Or this delightful pink Otacle multi-tool box opener. Nothing says our relationship is on track and rock solid, darling, quite like giving that special someone a razor blade for her handbag. I asked ex-wives 2 through 5 inclusive, and they all agreed, dude. In the closing stages of our relationships, such a gift would have been a strategic error. Go figure, but it might just grease the wheels enough for you to procure that Oite of your dreams before the sale ends on Saturday when the big fat discounts run out. Link in the description, and thanks to Oite for supporting this channel. The source of this information is ultimately the Phoenix Fire Department in Arizona and a dude named Paul Christensen. That's according to EV Fire Safe. Now, they say that fire and rescue crews in a place called Mountain View nearby were called to a smoke alarm that went off in a nearby private residence. This took place on the 11th of April this year. And during the time that the crews were applying water to sort of literally hose down this event, water's got this great capacity to absorb thermal energy, so like 4.2 kilojoules for every kilo for every degree rise in temperature. It's miraculous stuff that we take for granted. It's really good at doing that. Anyway, while they were doing that, the vapour which was off-gassing from this battery exploded, ignited for whatever reason, and it blew the garage door 30 metres away and clipped that firefighter. Apparently there were another 2 or 3 first responders nearby or in the residence, and miraculously none of them were injured. So, yay. I'd suggest that this was probably A, the result of their training, and B, luck may have been a factor as well. Who knows? You can't tell initially whether or not it's just like the pressure wave that blows the helmet off or not, but they say in the report that there's a dirty big gouge from the door in the back of that dude's helmet. So I certainly hope he went and bought a lottery ticket when the plant whistle blew and his shift ended for the day, because luckiest dude on earth if he hadn't been wearing that helmet, heaven forbid. Anyway, 3 firefighters, they say, were inside the garage at the time, but no serious injuries, so I guess we should just be thankful and use this to learn so that future incidents like this might be less severe. The video was taken by the local Mountain View Fire Department, they say. So the battery in this vehicle is 17.3 kilowatt hours. It's a 400 volt system, so not to be messed with. But bear in mind, the size of this battery is really only about 1/4 of the size of the battery that could be in an average full battery electric vehicle. So explosions of this nature, you'd think, would be kind of proportional to the amount of materials that were experiencing thermal runaway, and 4 times as big a battery, you do the maths on that. Official reports say it was unclear if the vehicle was previously damaged, and the fire safe dudes say that the chemistry in this vehicle is generally the NMC kind, so it's got the cobalt, nickel, manganese and cobalt. So it off-gasses toxic and flammable fumes, and that means the full PPE sideshow for the first responders. In May, incidentally, a similar event occurred in the same vehicle, the Wrangler 4xe, this time in New York. It started smoking while it was on the charger at a private residence, and the point here to bear in mind is that the battery case itself can act like a pressure vessel. So the battery has some internal malfunction and begins to heat up, like a short circuit or something. It might grow a dendrite and short out, might have been mechanically damaged and shaken up and then short out. Everything gets hot, and when it gets to a predetermined temperature, it starts to enter thermal runaway. It off-gasses, makes its own oxygen. The gas is toxic and flammable. So this is a very serious situation. And I note that every time a first responder, like a ranking first responder, is interviewed in Australia, they tell you how safe the technology is. And that's true, obviously. The technology is safe. The rate of fires and things of this nature with electric vehicles is no greater than that with combustion cars. Some people say it's safer, but I don't think they've taken into account the underlying modalities of a lot of the fires that take place, such as intentional fires like arson, and the age of the vehicles that are burning as well, because obviously electric vehicles are comparatively new. You'd think, therefore, that they would be safer because age deteriorates all systems and the protections within them, sort of thing. So let's just say they're about as safe. The problem with EVs is they're different, and the nature of the fires is different. The hazards are different. There's a lot of different things about them, and we're really not coming to terms with that. There's a terrific shot here from EV Fire Safe in their report, which shows mopping up efforts well and truly after the dust has settled. So the immediate thermal runaway is over, and yet the firefighters are all wearing their full PPE still. And it begs the obvious question to me, in cases where the dwelling is not totaled by events like this, what needs to occur so that the humans can go back and live there safely? Like, what mopping up of all of these toxic heavy metal compounds is required, and how long is that going to take, and how expensive is it going to be, and what's that going to do for things like your home insurance premium in the future? That's all worthy of discussion, and I don't believe you're being anti-EV if you want to discuss things such as this. So EV Fire Safe says they've identified 15 of these vapour cloud explosions since 2010, and it's unclear whether they're just in America or globally, but 70% of these have occurred in enclosed spaces. Now, with the vapour cloud deal, the vapour cloud can build up inside the case of the battery itself, which can become a pressure vessel, and that can lead to a fairly violent explosion. In cases where the case is not a pressure vessel and the gases escape, then if the vehicle is in an enclosed room, such as a garage, then it can form an enclosed space where those toxic flammable vapours are looking for a source of ignition. Interestingly, this is not unlike the case of a fuel leak from a fuel tank that's been punctured, because petrol evaporates spontaneously to form a combustible mixture at basically every temperature that human beings ever live in, even like Canada in the middle of winter kind of thing. So these risks are similar, although the gases from the battery are also toxic. Interestingly, this source of ignition that they require to explode, to deflagrate, it can be external, like in a static electricity spark or something of that nature. It could be an electric arc from some sort of damage to electrical components in the car, but it can also be as simple as the friction of the gas escaping from a small aperture in the battery. So this stuff seems pretty unstable to me, and you would want to be careful, I think, about where you stored and charged your EV. We'll get to that in just a minute or so. But before we do, have a look at this video, which EV Fire Safe also shows. It's a basement car park full of mopeds, and the one off-gassing is obviously electric. It takes 90 seconds from the first hint of that gas appearing to the full-on deflagration, which you might think of as a gentle explosion, but one which you would not want to be in. And I would suggest to you that if you were in an underground car park and you were at some early point in the discovery of that smoke, 90 seconds is not a great deal of time to locate an exit and get to it and get out of it to safety, especially if you have your young children or elderly parents to take care of in these situations. So it could be fairly serious in the future to have large amalgamations of vehicles such as this, mopeds, cars, whatever, in underground enclosed spaces. And I'm not saying it's going to happen every day, but it is going to happen and we need to talk about it. My personal suggestion to mitigate the risk here, and I'd love to know what you think in the comments, is A, do not park, or even worse, charge your plug-in hybrid or your full battery EV in your garage. Do it outside, like get the charger installed outside. It's an all-weather deal. Doesn't have to be inside. Get it on an exterior wall of your home and do the recharging on the concrete apron out the front if you possibly can. And if you can't, it might be a great idea to recharge, if possible, and if your security is not compromised, with the garage door open. Even if it's a rear door of the garage onto your internal yard sort of thing. You might want to fit a fan so that clean air flows into the space so that gases of this nature, if they do happen, can't build up and make a bad situation worse. I'd much rather enter into a discussion with professional firefighters and agencies of this nature about how to make this stuff safer, rather than just hear them endlessly say on television, this technology is remarkably safe. Yeah, it is, meaning low probability, right? But high consequence when it does happen. So what friggin' countermeasures are we going to put in place? Bearing in mind that it's not just the technology, is it? It's also the dickhead we need to think about. The person who drives over something hard one day, crashes into something that falls off a truck and thinks, no, car's going all right, all good, must have escaped any danger there because the car's going all right. Then they come home, they park in the garage, shut the door, plug in the charger, go and watch reruns of I Love Lucy, and then hear a bang. Mainly dickhead factor, because if you own an EV and you do that and you don't stick your snout under it somewhere safe and make sure that the case doesn't appear to be undamaged, then you are that dickhead. Like, sorry, dude, but this sort of thing should be in the owner's manual, and it's not. Where were we? A, that was A, don't do that. Don't charge in your garage if you can avoid it. B, owners of shopping malls and things of this nature might like to rethink how they're doing the installation of their charging locations for EVs, and they might like to put them on the upper level of the car park if it is an open-air, multi-storey external car park. Put the chargers on the roof out in the weather, because that's probably the safest place for them. You might want to designate spots for EVs and plug-in hybrids only, which are in ventilated car park areas, as opposed to underground in some kind of basement, which would be the worst case scenario. And I don't hear any discussions of this nature being had here in Australia, and I think that is a great pity. I really do. Batteries are reasonably safe. I'm not anti-EV, but these kinds of incidents, and yeah, I know, Australia is a long way from Arizona, but oddly similar in terms of climate in most places, and oddly similar in terms of population density, because we have plenty of garages attached to houses in relatively big yards, the same as they do in places like Mountain View, seemingly. So we've got similar domestic arrangements as well, and I'd suggest that the distance between us might be great geographically, but philosophically not so much. So we might be able to learn something from this incident, and we might be able to start responsible discussions about the mitigation of risk when it comes to these dirty big batteries, which are inevitably going to be deployed around us. Low probability, high consequence events means you need to have structural protections in place. Education, building code, things of this nature. More EVs equals not greater risk, but more incidences of this nature. The probability is the same, we're just increasing the population. It means it's going to happen more often.